The United States claims to have over 8,000 tons of gold. But what if I told you no one's actually seen that gold in decades? Now, supposedly these bars are stored in heavily guarded vaults, the most famous of which is the Fort Knox Bullion Depository in Kentucky, which alone holds about 4,580 tons, almost half of the country's gold. The rest is split between the US Mint and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's vault. In total, though, the US reserves have stayed at about 8,100 tons for decades, with only small changes. And the value of all this gold, or something called the book value, is set at a very specific price, $42.22 per ounce, totaling about $11 billion. But there's a problem. That price is way below today's market value. At recent market prices, this gold would be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. The US gold reserve is a hugely valuable asset, even if its official accounting value hasn't been updated since the 1970s. But why? Surely the gold reserves are reviewed every year, right? Supposedly it should be. It isn't. And just recently, US banks have been flying in thousands and thousands of gold bars from London to New York, sparking a lot of theories as to what is actually happening. So the question is, if we looked in there today, what would we find? Why doesn't the government just do an audit and tell us? And if it's missing, how would that affect ordinary people? It's one of the most interesting stories you're going to hear about, and that's what I want to share with you. So with that said, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andre Jick. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the gold. Now, gold is part of America's mythical lore, and throughout history, there have been rumors that the United States doesn't actually have the gold it says it does. But first I gotta ask, how did the US even end up with over 8,000 tons of gold? In 1933, during the Great Depression, President Franklin Roosevelt ended the gold standard for US citizens and ordered the confiscation of most privately held gold through Executive Order 6102. Americans were required to turn in all their gold coins and all their bullion to the government in exchange for paper dollars. This was super controversial at the time, and it resulted in a huge inflow of gold to the US Treasury. Now, to store it, Fort Knox Depository was built in 1936, and by 1937, there were trainloads of seized and stolen gold that were moved into these new vaults. The gold is either there or it isn't, and it's time we find out. For now, there's no concrete evidence that any US gold is missing. All signs point to it still being there safe and sound, and maybe Elon Musk will someday live stream and show us all of that, but would we really know what we're looking at if he did? I know I wouldn't. And now we're back to the beginning. It's not a full audit, right? I didn't get to lick the gold bars myself, but you know what actually fixes this? So I guess we'll see what happens. As always, I'd love to hear your theories on what you think is going on. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Andre.
Smash the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to see you back here next week. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco, and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. So Warren Buffett is obviously one of the greatest investors of all time, and they are currently sitting on over $334 billion in cash, and there's probably a reason for that. So in this video, I want to go over that because at the time of this recording, the market is having a really hard time. Stocks definitely are correcting. A lot of my portfolio is correcting. So let's get right into the presentation. So this is Berkshire Hathaway. I created this image with Buffett with a suitcase full of cash and Berkshire Hathaway Inc., Omaha, Nebraska, inside the suitcase. So this is a live picture of my portfolio, you guys. All joking aside, it's not doing that bad. I'm just being facetious. But let's get into the meat of the video. So Berkshire Hathaway, they're currently holding $334 billion in cash. So basically from Q1 2024 to Q4 2024, their cash balance rose by $145.2 billion. So what is Buffett seeing here? Okay, so if we look at this chart right here, the cash and cash equivalents is basically at by far their all-time high over the last 30 years. And if we keep moving forward, let me show you a picture of their balance sheets. So right now they hold $286.5 billion of U.S. Treasury bills, aka T-bills, and $44.3 billion of cash in their insurance and other businesses. In their railroad, utilities, and energy business, they hold another $3.4 billion of cash, which you can see right here. It's $3.396 billion, and then here are the other two that I just mentioned. And again, these are cash and cash equivalents. So they have more cash than the Federal Reserve right now.
All right, let's check in over at Forbes to see what they got to say about Mr. Zuckerberg.
One of my moments, the first time that I was facing Mark Zuckerberg, and we had a very specific mandate to actually create demand for the group's products on their Facebook.
When you were CMO, it was still Facebook.
When I was CMO, it was still Facebook, and this was specifically about the Facebook platform relative to Instagram and WhatsApp and Messenger that were part of the portfolio that I was leading from a marketing standpoint. We had conversations on strategy. We had conversations numbers first. Mm-hmm. Which is something that some marketers moving into the non-CPG world do not understand, which is kind of, in the CPG world, you lead with ideas and you finalize with numbers, which is kind of like, this is what's going to happen. And by the way, rest assured that I'm taking care of the numbers. Outside of the CPG world is completely the opposite. You lead with numbers. And then, by the way, sometimes you don't even need to show the pictures because you've convinced them on a very rational sort of level. The conversation that we had with Mark at the time, he really did not understand what we were saying, and could not understand the concepts. And by the way, he was surrounded by all the engineers, who all of them had different points of view. And I remember that at that time I said, "Oh my goodness, maybe I'm not in the right company." And that night I sort of reflected on.
I'm sorry, just for when you say you couldn't understand, were you pitching an idea, a campaign, a strategy?
We were pitching a campaign to make people understand what groups could mean to them in their daily life. Right. And we had all the strategy, all the growth numbers for groups, the level of engagement of people that were in groups relative to those that weren't. What were the passion points where people would interact more often? I mean, we had it all. The CMO, when you're working in the non-CPG world, has to own the role of educating the CEO and the company as to what marketing can do. It is easier when you're doing the performance side of the house, because it's very clear this delivers on that. It is harder when you're talking about a bit more upper funnel but that's one. I mean, I have many stories like that, and it always goes back to, let me build a bridge between the business strategy and things that they can understand so that I can actually sell what we're trying to do.
That was cool. A lot of that makes sense to me coming from my creative background as graphic design. You gotta be able to speak the language. You gotta be able to convey ideas to different people in different ways so they understand it. So I can dig it. Yeah. So thank you. As you can tell, I'm just getting started here. So please subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.